I'd like to commence by acknowledging the traditional landowners, and those are the landowners of where I'm convening this meeting from today, which are the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. And I would like to pay my respects to their elders past, present and future. And I'm aware that we've got many people dialing in from all over Australia, and so I would like to pay my respects to your traditional landowners from wherever you are. And a very big warm welcome to everyone to our RegTech Open for Business with the UK slant today. Alison, can I ask you to start recording?
Yep. Go for it.
Thanks very much. So it seems like a lot longer than 6 weeks ago, although it is only 6 weeks ago that we devastatingly had to postpone our annual conference, Accelerate RegTech 2020, with only 3 days to go. And then that was closely followed by the next blow was that we had to postpone indefinitely a delegation of RegTechs that were heading off to the UK. As we're all grappling with the impacts of COVID-19, staying safe and helping our members navigate through, the challenges. But, what's also important is that we help people plan for recovery in what will be a new normal. And so that's what today's session is all about. And we developed this series called RegTech Open for Business in response to the pandemic, and so that we could shine a different light on different facets of helping our members traverse the challenges, but also open up new opportunities for the recovery that I've just spoken about. And I've been absolutely overwhelmed that in the last 6 weeks, we've had 800 people from 15 countries and almost 300 companies join us. And in fact, today we have reps from government, banks, advisors, RegTech companies, trade agencies from 10 different countries, and that includes, and I'll read them out, Ireland, Jordan, England, Australia, US, Austria, Germany, New Zealand, Singapore, Hong Kong. And so what you can read from that is, quite apart from the fact that we're having these much more authentic conversations with people as we are actually all in the same boat right now, this pivot has caused global borders to melt away. And so I'm seeing that as a very positive thing and somewhat of an opportunity. And so over the next couple of weeks, what you can expect to see is a more global lens that the RegTech Association will have as we launch our RegTech Edge programs, which have now been slightly renamed to RegTech Edge No Borders. So the former programs that we were to run in Singapore, London, Auckland and Sydney will merge into one. And these will present solutions solving for COVID specifically over the first couple of sessions. And then we'll move on to things like digital identity, voice data analytics and KYC, just to name a few. And I'll wrap up with some more detail about those. Now, we actually have some housekeeping today, and just to let people know that we are actually recording this and we make this available post the event for those that missed out. So if I could just have the housekeeping slide, that would be amazing. So if I could just ask everybody to go on mute, please, with the exception of the speakers when they're speaking. And what we will do is we will field all of the questions via the chat function, which if you fiddle around with one of your controls there, you'll find the chat function to the right-hand side. And I'll do my very best to get to everybody as I moderate through those. And if I could just ask you, when you put your question in the chat, could you actually just repeat your name, type your name and type your organisation, as that's helpful because sometimes the names on Teams don't all come through, so it's good for us to have some context. So for today's session on why, the UK is such a great opportunity for RegTech right now, we decided to move ahead and reconvene the very session that we were going to run at Accelerate RegTech. And we want to run this session without sales pitches. We just really want to have information. We want to have connection, tools and resources for you all to be able to leverage from. And so I'm really delighted that our original sponsor for the session at Accelerate was UK Department for International Trade, and I'm delighted to have Tess Thomas on the line, who is the Director of Investment for Australia and New Zealand. And Tess is going to talk to us about a couple of things, including the UK grants, the startup ecosystem, trade with the UK in this COVID environment, the investor landscape, fintech solutions in the UK, and opportunities in medtech regulation. And then we'll welcome Tom Merriman from Gungho Marketing. Gungho are a RegTech Association member. And poor Tom was originally going to speak on this session in Sydney, and he got halfway across the world when he got the call from me to say, I hope you haven't left home yet. And he said, well, I'm actually in Singapore. And so it was the fastest trip that poor Tom had ever made to Australia. He arrived and then literally booked himself on a plane to go straight back before the borders shut down. So I want to acknowledge Tom for that. So Tom's the head of global partnerships for Gungho, and he's going to take us through the UK market with Gungho's lens, the impact as they are seeing it of COVID-19, to give some tips on how to penetrate the UK market and why now is a great time for RegTech in the UK. So without further ado, you'll hear from me a bit later, but I might now pass on to Tess for her part of the presentation. Thank you very much, Tess.
Thank you, Deborah, and thank you very much for having me this afternoon. So it's a real pleasure to be able to be joined by so many people from so many parts of the globe. So it's fantastic to be able to bring us all together through digital solutions. So it's good to be here. So those of you who don't already know the UK Department for International Trade, I thought I might just start with a little bit of background to who we are and how we support Australian technology businesses. And then I'll go into the specific response the UK government has had to COVID-19, and then go through the agenda as Deborah outlined. So firstly, the Department for International Trade, we support Australian businesses to expand to the UK. And what that means is our services are really bespoke to every business that we work with. So it can start from market intelligence to really understand the market opportunity. And that can be anything from understanding the competitor landscape, understanding the regulation, if you're in, say, financial services or medical devices, helping you establish a business bank account, which can take up to 3 months. So it's really understanding the due diligence and processes in place to establish in the UK. And then it's helping you find the right location for your business. So we have a fantastic Financial Times tool, which is completely unbiased, and we can run a financial modeling program to help you decide on where you locate your business. So if you're looking at the US versus the UK, or even within the UK, if you're looking to consider, say, London versus Manchester or Leeds, we can understand the criteria that really means the most to you. So if that's access to talent, cost of talent, access to infrastructure, access to airports, cost of rent, cost of getting access to science and technology resources, then we can run like a whole financial analysis for you and even compare the different government grants that might be available, say, in Scotland versus Northern Ireland versus London. So we can run financial modelling, we can help you find the right location for your business, market intelligence, and the best asset that our department really has is we employ a lot of people from industry. So you're not just dealing with civil servants all the time, you're dealing with experts in their field. So in each sector that we work in, which are the main, primary growing sectors like fintech, regtech, insurtech, you'll have people in the UK that you can speak to who work part-time for our government. And these people are really connected and remain connected into their networks and contacts in the UK, and will help you understand if your company is in the right place at the right time, and have that really honest, frank conversation with you. So all those services are free and confidential to Australian businesses. And I have a team across Australia and New Zealand, some of who are on the call this afternoon as well. So more than happy to make any introductions if you are considering a UK expansion. I know that it can be quite a tricky time at the moment, but sometimes that journey can take up to 2 years before you actually physically set up in the UK. So there's no better time than now to start thinking about your strategy, and if you are a digital business, to be thinking about going global digitally. So now a little bit more of a focus on COVID-19 and how the UK government has responded. Really, as you probably have seen, that globally, government just can't act fast enough. The UK government is constantly adapting to the business's response and needs. There's been a number of schemes rolled out across the UK to help and support business. And most recently, there's been a technology fund which has been delivered basically in response to consultation with the tech ecosystem in the UK. So I'll just quickly go through what some of those support schemes are. And the fantastic thing that the UK has actually done recently is put all of the different schemes into one place. So we have a new support finder tool, and I'll also share the link to that with Deborah so that you can access this after the webinar. But basically it's a tool that's created to help businesses and self-employed people across the UK quickly and easily determine which financial support is available for them based on their profile of business. And that's quickly accessible through Gov.uk, and it takes a matter of minutes, and you just need to fill out some simple information to put in your profile of the business. If you're a startup, how many employees you have, what sector you're in, and then it'll offer which support is available to you. So there's been a number of different schemes, as I mentioned. So I'll just quickly run through a couple that may be of interest to you, because I don't know how many of you have a UK business already, but this just may be relevant. The most recent one, which is the new bounce back loan scheme. So that was actually announced by our Chancellor on Monday this week, Monday the 27th. So essentially this allows businesses to borrow between £2,000 and £50,000 cash, and they can access this money within days. So the original business support loan scheme that the UK government rolled out in the first response to COVID-19 was available to SMEs. This has actually taken quite some time for businesses to get a hold of, and that's a loan scheme. This one is a lot quicker and only takes a matter of days to get access to. So, and those loans are actually going to be interest-free for 12 months. So the government will pay the interest, and you can simply apply again through like an online form. I'll just mention another one which is relevant to businesses in the regulation innovation space is the Innovate UK. So the Innovate UK is actually the UK's own innovation agency. If you don't know Innovate UK, you should. A lot of international governments praise this innovation agency, and it's a fantastic support mechanism for any R&D intensive or innovation business going to the UK, because it actually matches talent with universities and catapults with funding. So it's a fantastic resource. And so Innovate UK are actually going to give an extra £550 million to support existing customers, and will give an extra £175,000 to businesses who aren't currently Innovate UK customers. And all of these will be available mid-May. So that's just some of the initiatives that the UK government's doing to support businesses through the COVID-19 crisis. And I'm sure we're going to be seeing more support as we learn and we listen to what businesses are saying and what their challenges are, and we feed in across Whitehall to help make policy decisions for business. I was going to give it a bit of an overview of what's happening in the tech ecosystem in the UK. So what we're seeing really is a rapid, and I'm sure it's the same in Australia and everywhere else in the world, it's like a rapid adoption of online and digital services. So there's been a real shift in spending. More money is going towards health and wellness, remote working, as we've all heard about, digital entertainment, and online food services. So online groceries, food delivery, that's all gone, it's skyrocketed, as well as education platforms. And in the UK, we're really, really determined to back the founders that we see have the right skill and aptitude to turn ideas into tangible products. So it's really about going, I think what a lot of startups we saw probably towards the end of last year, it was all about the growth and focusing on the growth of their business. And now what we want to see is more of that value insight. So if you really find that niche where there is true value in your product or service, and it's a real need that people want, then we're willing to support you. So a little bit more about the funding that we're seeing in the changes in the VC landscape in the UK. So earlier from the year, Tech Nation, which is a fantastic source of tech data and deal room, showed that venture capital investment surged 44% to around £10 billion. And that outstripped growth in the US and China last year. So this accounted for almost a third of all European VC funding, which is a fantastic result for the UK, considering Brexit as well. But now what we're seeing, I'd say from March onwards, we've seen probably a drop in about 22% in Europe in that funding, which is not a huge drop, but it is quite substantial. VCs are saying they still are open for business as long as you are in those sectors that I mentioned. And a CB Insights report I recently read actually said that it's really Asia and the US where they've seen the biggest drop in VC activity, not as much in Europe. So there's been I think worst impact in Asia and the US recently. I thought I'd also just quickly mention what's happening with the regulators. So the FCA has been really progressive. They've been really proactive in responding to the COVID-19 challenges, and they've set up a small business unit. And this unit will coordinate all the activities of the FCA across small business issues to ensure that firms are supported through the challenges of COVID-19. They've been very pragmatic as well. So they've relaxed ID measures and they've made it really easy for lenders. So this is actually showing how fantastic it is to have that Innovate function at the FCA, which is the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK. Their Innovate function we work very closely with, and they're now looking at how to run their tech sprints through remote joining capabilities, which is fantastic. So it's really good to see the regulator implementing some of those digital solutions. And one conversation I had with FCA colleague last week has said that they've actually asked their clients now to submit selfies to identify themselves. I would have never thought I'd see that from the FCA. So it's been really positive. So companies can also accept scanned documentation over email and send codes to customer addresses to validate account access. So there's been some really positive change. And the contactless limit in the UK is increased. It was £30, but I think that's increased now to £45, which is not a huge increase, but there's going to be more increases for contactless limits. I think Australia is ahead of the curve there because it's gone up to $200, I think. But yeah, the FCA has really been proactive, and I think we're going to see more innovations from them further down the track. And just quickly on trade with Australia and what opportunities there are. So we are still very determined to complete a free trade agreement with Australia. The UK government really is prioritising opening up bilateral trade and recognises how important global trade is and keeping those supply chains open, particularly across all sectors. So what we think we'll see is a real increase in the digital trade offering with swifter and deeper digital integration and a wider scope of mutual recognition of standards. And that might be anything from IP to investment in financial services, mutual recognition of qualifications, practices, and even simpler online paperwork, which really should help SMEs. So we really see this as an opportunity between Australia and the UK to work together to get through the challenges of COVID-19 and also use the free trade agreement as an opportunity to work even more closely in digital trade. So I think there'll be some real opportunities in regulation and regulation technology through that work. And just a little bit more on the UK government and some of the announcements that have taken place recently, and I recommend looking out for. So in March, the Chancellor announced that the UK Treasury would be publishing a white paper in the spring. And this is on the future of the UK financial sector. So this really intends that the UK will be at the forefront of technological innovation and efforts to tackle climate change with a strong, resilient and competitive financial sector. And this really will be underpinned by world-leading regulatory standards, so to ensure the UK is open to global markets. And I can share that with Deborah so that you can share that with the RegTech Association members once that report is out. And another thing that Treasury is doing in the UK is conducting a long-term review into the future regulatory framework for financial services. So in March, the Treasury published its response to the call for evidence of the first phase, which highlights where there is scope to improve the way that regulatory change is coordinated across the UK. So it's very likely that there will be further opportunities for both RegTech and even super tech, so that's superannuation tech, to play a part. And then finally, I just wanted to touch on some of the opportunities that I see for RegTech specifically in the UK at the moment. As we all know, the pandemic really is going to be a catalyst for digital innovation, and particularly in financial services. COVID-19 and the resulting move to greater isolation, working from home, closure of bank branches has really resulted in an increased need for and focus on security and compliance, particularly of like remote applications, monitoring of employees, customer behaviour, improved audit trails and capabilities such as eKYC. This is all really great news for RegTechs. I really see a real opportunity for RegTechs, and particularly somewhere like the UK with a progressive regulator like the FCA, because it's creating a great market pool. So some of those who are in contract discussions, we've seen accelerated decision making as a need for a solution become more pressing. Some institutions are also looking to buy or onboard additional capabilities from existing providers. So there's really a need for continued engagement with regulators, and government recognise this. And again, you know, with opportunities also comes challenges, and we're not, you know, anywhere near the end of this pandemic yet, but some of those challenges are around, you know, does there really need to be a regulation body just for tech businesses in the UK? Is there a bias from the government body, and how do we work globally to find a set of standards? So there's some of the things that we're looking for from a UK government perspective. So more than happy to answer any questions anyone has after the talk. So thanks.
Thanks, Tess. Yeah, we might, if that's okay, hold the questions till after we've heard from Tom, and then we'll do them together. So Tom, now we're having issues with your sound.
Can you hear me?
I can. Could everybody put themselves on mute, please?
Okay.
Let's try. Yeah. It almost sounds like, is there another microphone?
No, I've just got the one.
Okay, let's push forward and see how we go. If everyone's on mute, that'd be grand, because it sounds like somebody's talking in the background. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Deborah, and thank you for that insight, Tess, as well. That was fascinating. Just so you guys know the angle that our lens is coming from, we're a compliance and RegTech focused telemarketing agency based in the UK with a global outreach. But so just in terms of the UK market and what we're seeing. The UK market is obviously a historic market. Things really heated up in the RegTech compliance space shortly after 9/11, along with the American market. So it's been around for a long time. There is quite an advanced buying cycle over here. So it can take 2 to 3 years, depending on what stage people's contracts are at, and that sort of thing. However, it's the second largest RegTech market in the world, coming in just after America, and there is plenty of opportunity out there. albeit quite a saturated market. There is lots of opportunity. In terms of the impact of COVID-19 so far on the UK market, I'd say the initial impact, there was a couple of weeks of panic where we were sort of realizing that COVID-19 had hit our shores, and the adjustment phase of everybody moving to working from home. But once we'd had those initial couple of weeks, I think we're now discovering what the new normal is, and as far as it's possible, business is as usual. Obviously, everything's being done virtually, but you know, like I said, we're facing the new normal. I think across the market, the sort of shift to working from home and has made decision makers more accessible. I think there's a high connection rate. There's less gatekeepers to get through and that sort of thing to get to decision makers. So I think that's actually a positive thing for the RegTech market. Also there's less distractions when you do get through to that decision maker. You know, they may not have a colleague standing at the edge of their desk needing something from you when you're trying to initiate that conversation. I mean, they may well have a toddler crying. It's not always perfect, but the distractions are certainly minimalized, and perhaps that decision maker hasn't had very many conversations that day, so they're willing to entertain a longer conversation with you. So we're certainly seeing a lot more of a positive response in terms of actually getting hold of decision makers. The other thing that's going on in the UK market since the start of COVID-19, the cybercrime rate is fairly high, and it's a hot topic. Not to say that the criminals are being successful, but there's obviously trying to capitalize on what's going on with COVID and the general panic that's caused, and compliance officers perhaps being away from their desk and working from home. They're trying to exploit that. So I think in response to that, the FCA and other regulators globally have been very strong with their messaging that they don't want standards to relax. They're being very hot. Just because the pandemic is here doesn't mean that we can allow the standards to drop and criminals to succeed. So it brings me to the topic of some top tips of how to penetrate the UK market. I would say number one would be picking your audience. I think obviously if you've done some research, that's fantastic, but you need to narrow down exactly who the focus and who you want to be talking to, especially during this time, because focus can give you a foothold. And if you've got foothold, you can then build momentum. It's much easier if your long-term plans are to set up a UK office, for example. It's much easier to have that first client through the door before you open up those offices. The other thing I recommend is making sure you stand out from the competition. Like I said, it's a saturated market. There's lots of opportunities, but there's also lots of other companies going for them. So I think a good marketing strategy is key here, whether that's digital, telemarketing, or through paid advertising, but making sure that you stand out from the crowd and you can get your points across effectively to generate that interest. So why is now a good time to be looking to penetrate the UK market, especially with everything that's going on? Lots of businesses are perhaps thinking about withdrawing funds for growth, but why is now a good time? I think what COVID-19 has done has actually made globally, not just in the UK, but made everything a level playing field. So I think with the move to digital and conferencing instead of face-to-face, I think the world has sort of shrunk overnight. I mean, this meeting is evidence of that. It's a lot easier to hold a hold a meeting, and anyone based in the UK is going to be doing it virtually as well. So I think it's a completely level playing field on that front. Something that Tess and the guys at AustNZ can talk to you a lot more about than me. But another thing that happened 2 years ago, our governments, the UK and Australia, signed a RegTech bridge. So obviously go to them, not me, but there are a lot of grants and funding schemes available between our two countries. So it is a good time from that point of view. The other thing I would say is that RegTech and FinTech and the whole industry isn't going anywhere. It's only going to grow. So we've seen around a 20% growth year on year since the industry began, which is obviously fairly large. And like I said, the regulations aren't going anywhere. Therefore, the industry won't either. So I think it's a great time to be investing into the industry, especially as we now are all moving to a more digital age than we had previously, which has obviously been accelerated by COVID-19. The other sort of caution I would add is that sometimes if you're talking to a UK company, it may take a while to get sign off. It might take a few months or perhaps even a year for some of the tier one banks. But that doesn't mean you can't start laying the groundwork now. The sooner you lay the groundwork, the more traction you'll have when it comes to the market being more open. But as I said, we're seeing lots of traction in the market currently anyway. So I think that was my sort of brief bit, Deborah. Happy to take any questions.
You're on mute, Deb.
There we go. Is that better?
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I lost you. I might go to you, Tess, to begin with to kick us off. And I once again, I encourage you to put your questions on the chat and just type your name and your organisation and what your question is, and I'll ask it of the speakers. Tess, you mentioned the shift in spending. There's plenty of evidence, I think, in Australia that it's quite similar to that. But we'd also add probably to those areas, we're going to see, I think, much more spending in government as they, there are new government departments emerging called customer service and things like that. And some of the ways that they're going to be able to deliver that is using RegTech. And the other one that will probably also be able to benefit a lot from RegTech is healthcare. So couldn't agree more. I think we've all seen the explosion of supermarket home delivery and online shopping has exploded, but we actually think these other verticals. But also just on your point about FCA being super progressive, that was a really interesting point and some of your insights around that. And this is not so much of a question, I guess, but more of a statement is the FCA actually contacted the association 2 weeks ago and are very interested in the work that we're doing, and they are reaching out around the world to all of the different associations and people who are convening gatherings exactly like what we are doing and running the kinds of programs that we are doing, and they're very interested now in coming to participate actively. So they're no longer just focused on what's actually happening in the UK. They are now starting to go a bit more global. Is there anything that you could add to that, Tess?
Yeah, probably just that we have a fintech bridge. I think, as Tom mentioned, the RegTech bridge. So the fintech bridge, which is the agreement between both Treasury Departments of Australia and the UK. And since that bridge was signed, the FCA and ASIC have been and even before the bridge was just a formal announcement of what was kind of already taking shape, but the FCA and ASIC are working very closely and sharing experiences and best practices in regulation innovation. and making sure that both the UK and Australia are going to be leading amongst the G20 countries when we look at digital ID and digital solutions in regulation. So I was supposed to talk a little bit more on medtech, but I didn't want to kind of run over time. But I think there will be opportunities as well in the medical field, not just in financial services with the FCA, but also in the medical field with regulation as we look at telehealth and an increased need for medical devices and global trade and supply chains in the medical world. So regulation is going to be more important more than ever in not only financial services but also in healthcare. But yeah, the FCA and their Innovate unit are certainly looking to go global and want to understand what is happening in all other jurisdictions. And we have our fintech specialist, Philippa Martinelli. So she's based in London. And works very closely with the FCA in London, so is more than happy to work with, and she works with all like international offices as well, from the US to Asia. So we're making sure that everyone's connected into the regulator through those channels.
Oh yeah, great. Okay, thank you. Tom, I had a question for you. We do actually have some questions from the audience too, so I'll let everybody have a turn. But I'm just interested to know, in the UK, what is the average sales cycle for a RegTech sale?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Well, it can be anything from 3 months to 2 years. Is the honest answer. So, if you're going to take the middle of that, about a year, but it's very much depending on what sort of technology you're selling and also your target audience. So if you're looking at smaller companies, or financials or banks, then it's a lot faster. But some of the tier 1, tier 2 banks, which obviously have headquarters in London, can take 1 or 2 years. And also there's a bit of luck involved as well, and how quickly they're due for renewal.
Yeah, sure. We did some research late last year, and the average time, I mean, there are outliers to this because it depends on how deeply integrated the tech is, right? But I think we came up with a number that was 13.1 months was the average. And financial services were probably slower. Okay, well, I might move to some of the questions from the audience. So this question is from Liz Boyce, who works for Dentons, who are a law firm. To what extent is there a learning curve for Australian RegTech businesses looking to expand it into the UK market? For example, understanding the practical application of the local regulatory framework, or understanding the unwritten conventions of how things are done around here. Who would like to take that?
Tess, do you want to do the underwritten regulating side of things?
Yep, sorry to take myself off mute. Yeah, sure. And did you want to look into the more general expansion or practical?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you kick off with the practical side and then I'll touch on the other.
Sure. So on the practical side of the UK market, it is ripe. Obviously, Tess and the AustNZ guys will have a lot better handle in terms of getting your feet on the ground and how that's possible. But the actual market activity, I would say that the UK market is not a biased market at all. We don't mind where we're getting our technology from. We're all about standards and what the technology can deliver. So if it's right for the company, and if it fits the profile and delivers to the right level, then there'll be no sort of bias or prejudice against buying from an Australian firm, so to speak. And obviously it's a lot easier to access the UK market at the moment with the 9 to 5 day going out the window because of us moving online and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I'd probably just add, I wouldn't underestimate the power of the fintech bridge that exists between the UK and Australia. We've seen a number of firms from both jurisdictions be easily able to transact and move through each market The reputation of Australian businesses, particularly financial services and in the regulatory field, is very strong in the UK. We have a common market. It's a very similar financial services system. It's a service-based economy, whereas the US is highly fragmented. So there's a new regulation in each state. So yeah, I would say that particularly the UK is there with open arms to welcome any Australian business, and same language, very similar business culture, and also the DIT. I mean, I wouldn't we do offer a completely free service, so it's a no-brainer. Please speak to the team on the ground, because we do hold your hand through the whole journey, and if it does take 2 years, then we're there to support you. As long as we see that you do have a proven business model and a product that we think will succeed, then we're willing to help.
Yeah, somebody's actually asked a question about, and I'll add a little bit of flavour in there too. So if somebody wanted to know more about the FinTech Bridge and what that entails and how to get involved, and in fact they wanted, how can a RegTech member best access your services?
Yeah, sure. So email me and I'll point you in the right direction. So I've got a team spread across Perth, Melbourne, Sydney. So we will account manage your business wherever you're geographically located and introduce you to our financial services and FinTech team in London. Right. By getting our services, you're already becoming a member of the bridge, and we will introduce you to the FCA Innovate team. So if you're looking to test your product in the UK, then you can apply through the FCA's regulatory sandbox. They have direct support, so tailored support for regulatory companies. And there's an advice unit, which, is fantastic. So the whole FCA has an innovation team which can support too.
Oh, great. Thank you. This question is from James Farrell from Microsoft. And could be actually aimed at either of you to answer as well. Have you heard any conversations about the banks looking to review their supply chains, specifically offshore arrangements, in light of offshore partners being unable to provide services due to the lockdown? And where do you see this going?
Tess, do you want to go first, or?
I was just going to say that I was actually, I can't respond directly to this question, but I was just listening to a really good podcast called 11FS. I don't know if anyone listens to it, but they've just released a report on the response from the banks, both in the UK and the US, to COVID-19, and how they're going to be onboarding services and managing their supply chains globally. So unfortunately, I didn't manage to read the whole report, which provides some great insights and can probably answer your question. And I'm more than happy to share it with Deborah afterwards. But
that's a good resource. Yeah, thank you for that. One of the things that we are creating out of all of these sessions is actually a whole host of online resources which we're publishing on the website. So all of this will be available to people. Did you have something that you wanted to add to that, Tom?
Just that we haven't seen anything specifically, no. Just to keep it brief.
Okay. So this is Siobhan from Slevin Consulting. The uncertainty of Brexit, there is a vacuum as regulations and cohesion with Europe, etc. Is the UK positioning itself as a standalone market or still as a gateway market?
Who do you want to go first?
Maybe we start with Tess.
Yeah.
Definitely a gateway market. The UK remains open to business and remains global Britain. In a post-EU exit, the UK will still be very closely tied to the EU and to other parts of the world. So with DIT support, once you enter the UK and you register a UK business, you then get our export services to then trade into North America or other parts of Europe or Asia from the UK. So the journey and the relationship doesn't stop once you enter the UK market.
And from a sort of non-government view, I think it's since Brexit, it's definitely been business as usual. I don't think there's been any slowing down at all with our trading between us and Europe. We're still very much aligned with Europe, as Tess says, and would certainly hope to stay that way, and haven't heard anything that will change that. So we're just continuing as normal.
Thanks, Tom. So the next question is one from Mark Wood from Red Marker. How would you suggest a company build their brand awareness in the UK with the financial services and other industries? We'll start with Tess again, ladies first.
Yeah, ladies first is safer.
Network. Really, like, if you're going to start in London, and honestly try and, once you can, get out of Australia and land in the UK and network as much as you can. There are some fantastic meetups, and we can introduce you to the key networks to help you grow. So a key member organisation is Innovate Finance. So they're a really good industry body to tap into, and they run meetups as well as different roundtables. Also introduce you to our financial services team, and the Australia UK Chamber in London is a fantastic resource for Australian businesses trying to increase their brand awareness in the UK. So they sit at Australia House where Austrade is, so we work really closely with them as well. And I can also recommend some really good PR and marketing firms in addition to what Tom does. So if you're not just running marketing, but also kind of PR as well on the side. I don't know if Tom offers that, but I'll let Tom speak.
Thanks, Tess. Yeah. Oh, sorry, our fire alarm's going off. Can you believe that? Don't worry, it's a test at the same time every Wednesday. So no, in terms of building a strategy for the UK market, I think it's very key to have your messaging sorted out, who you are, what you do, and then where you want to go. We obviously do a lot of work around this, and I'll try not to turn it into a sales pitch, but I think having experts on your side, so companies who know the space, have worked in the space for a long time, rather than just a blanket marketing team, certainly helps. And I think, like I said earlier, if you can start to get some of those wins, whilst we're in this sort of digital age, which I'm sure will continue post-COVID, if you can get a few of those wins in virtually now, then that will make it a lot easier when it comes to opening up offices and establishing a further client base and building brand awareness. As soon as you've got that one big name, so to speak, it can carry a lot of weight when you're talking to other potential prospects.
Tom, I have a question for you. Are you mostly focused on banks, or do you offer your services outside of banking?
No, we offer our services outside of banking. So any sort of regulated entity we have in our data set. We basically have a data set of 160,000 heads of risk, heads of compliance worldwide, which is sort of split 20% APAC, 40% EMEA, 40% North America. And we do within that have corporates as well. It's not just the financial side of things.
Right. Okay. Well, that's useful to know, because, as you know, the association tries to take a very broad view of RegTech, and that is to serve, any regulated industry vertical. I mean, we still do have a concentration around financial services, but about 40% of our members are now serving markets outside of financial services. Well, I've come to the end of the public questions. I'll give people on the line just a minute or so more if they wanted to conjure up some more questions. But in the meantime, just a clarification, Tess, could you just clarify for me that Innovate UK and Innovate Finance are two separate organisations? They're not the same organisation?
Yes, two separate organisations. So
Right.
Innovate UK is sector agnostic. and is the UK's innovation agency, and they provide funding and access to talent, whereas Innovate Finance is purely financial services industry body.
Yes. Okay, no, that's good. Breaking news. So we've got Chris Cobb from London, who's from Austrade. Breaking news. If I may, I'm able to advise that Austrade is currently recruiting for its trade and outward investment team in London to help Australian companies in the market. So there you go. What a I'm so glad to have some breaking news, and this is a perfect time for to let people know that you have positions vacant for sure. So that's great. Thank you, Chris. So everybody's heard that, and it's now recorded. And I guess they have to contact you if they are interested. Is that right? I'll take that. I'll take that as a yes.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So currently we're recruiting for another 2/3 jobs in London, looking into the UK. So
yeah, fantastic. And I believe that Austrade also looking to appoint somebody in New York as well. Is that right?
I don't know that, but who knows? Could be.
I saw something on LinkedIn today saying that they're looking to appoint somebody in New York. So there you go. And Liz has just said it's nice to have some breaking news other than a COVID stat.
Yeah, right.
For sure. So maybe Tess, I'll just throw to you really quickly just to wrap up. Any final thoughts and comments before we finish up?
Just please get in touch with us if you are looking at the UK. No question's a stupid question, and our services are completely free. So we have a whole access of experts in their field in the UK, including someone like Tom. So please don't hesitate to reach out to our team. Thanks,
Tess. And Tom?
Likewise, lovely to talk to you all. Sorry I couldn't do it in person, but I had a lovely weekend in Sydney. If you were thinking about starting in the UK, do please reach out. Deborah's got my details, and happy to talk you through what we think is going on in the market at the moment, and see what we can do to help.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And in particular, Tess, you have mentioned a number of resources. Please put those through to us, and we'll make sure that they're included. They're included on the site of resources. And I really want to make that a very interesting place to go. It's not that flash at the moment, but I really want to make that an interesting place to go with real tools, to help people through this very challenging time. So. I wanted to thank both Tess and Tom very much. So I'm going to do a clap for you. And just so that we can continue on our theme of never running over on the hour that we've promised, I just wanted to talk about what's next in the series. So next week, we will be joined by Senator Jane Hume, who's the Assistant Minister for Superannuation. She has the longest title, Superannuation Financial Services and Financial Technology. And she'll actually also be joined by 3 RegTech firms who are actually going to talk a little bit about the challenges that they've been experiencing during COVID, but also how they've managed to pivot their businesses or how they are preparing for recovery. So that is one not to be missed. And at that session, I'll also be unveiling the RegTech Association's new strategic objectives for the next couple of years. So don't miss that next week. And then also one that could be of interest to those of you from offshore as well is on the 7th of May, we're running what we call our Accelerator 2020 Pitch Fest. And this is actually 6 early stage companies who will be presenting on some of the problems that they're solving for. Now, many of them are still early stage, but it will really help give people some insights about some of the great tech that is being developed in this space. And these could be, the superstars of the future. So please come and join us in what will be yet another virtual program. 12th of May, navigating people through the challenges of COVID-19 with lots of changing, lots of restructuring, lots of uncertainty around people. This is a session that's going to address some of that. And then on the 14th of May, we're kicking off with our first RegTech Edge No Borders, and that will be on digital transformation. And we'll focus that on things that can really help in a COVID-19 world. And then I'm super excited to finally announce that on the 18th of March 2021, we're back with Accelerate RegTech, and we hope that we'll see all your happy smiling faces there in person. So if you can lock that date into your diary, 18th of March 2021. And for those of you that have tickets, they will transfer straight over to next year's event. So I think that brings us to the end of the session today. If you want to hang around for a minute or so afterwards and ask me any specific questions, I will stay on the line. But otherwise, you can feel free to log off now. Any questions, please get in touch with either Alison or myself, and the recording will be made available following the session, as well as a very short survey, and we'd be super grateful if you could just fill that in, because that's where we're actually developing our next sessions, so keeping them highly relevant based on your demand. So thanks once again for everybody for putting in and taking the time. Really appreciate it, and we'll see you very soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Deborah, is this the post-session drinks that we normally have after an event?
If you like.
Tess, are you still on the line?
She is.
Yes, I am.